Welcome to this week's live. Today I am going live with award-winning artist Alarke, who's also known as May Alouette. She is an LA-based electric pop singer, songwriter, music producer, entrepreneur, and artist development coach who helps other artists find their true voice and their signature sound. Alarke, welcome to today's live. I'm so excited to have you on here today and talk about such a big topic, especially for women, and how vulnerable and powerful and expressive our voice is, and how when it's open and we're connected to it and we're tapped into our true voice, how life-changing that can be and how powerful that can feel for women. And for anyone who is in a place where maybe they are disconnected from it, how you can really feel that and how painful that can feel for people. So before we dive in, I would love for you to do just a quick self-introduction and just say a little bit about maybe how you got to where you are now, or just something in your experience around, when we had talked before, you had said that you've been singing since a small child, and just really anything you want to share that comes up for you in the moment around your journey to where you are now.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Nicole. It's always so much fun to connect, and I'm really grateful to be here with your audience because if you're with them, then they're awesome. So, hi, everybody. So my journey in finding my own signature sound is even still evolving because as an artist, we're always evolving, and if you're not, then you're stuck. But I'm definitely aligned. I just don't want to trap myself. And I encourage that for other people to continue that exploration. My journey in my musical identity started when I was a young child. I started doing musical theater professionally at age 7, and then I would sing pop and I would sing opera with the Washington Opera and went to school for it. I got my degree in it at the Schulich School of Music at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and I would sing internationally in castles in Austria and Italy, and I sang at Carnegie Hall, but it wasn't for me. And we can get into that later about this journey of finding your voice. I had one foot in, one foot out. I would be in the opera school by day, going to all other kinds of music at night, electronic, jazz, Afrobeat, indie, punk, you name it. I just love music, and wasn't a match. So then I stumbled into a career singing gypsy jazz music in New York City. And I ended up doing that for 7 years full time. And we're talking 5 nights a week, 3-hour gigs. And I had patrons, and I would headline at the Rainbow Room at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, the Kennedy Center's Millennium Stage, win artist residencies. And I also that music was, I love the music and the community, but I did it because I could, not because it was what my heart truly wanted. And I felt that other people wanted that of me. And so at the same time, I was working to find my own voice and releasing my own original music, which had more electronic elements in it. And that did well. My music won awards. I apprenticed as an audio engineer in a music studio in New York. I'd sit in on sessions with A$AP Rocky. I learned so much. And then there came a time when I wanted to more fully just do my kind of music, and I was teaching a little bit, and I decided I want to free up my evenings to do my electronic gigs. And so I started doing more teaching and also freeing myself up to do my electronic pop music. And so right now that's what I'm doing. I'm releasing singles for this music that I truly love. I'm producing them, writing them, singing them, and and then I moved to Los Angeles to pursue my childhood dream here, and also to be in a place where I can collaborate with other composers and writers like that. And And I want to continue growing and touring. And I also coach other emerging and professional female artists in pop and electronic music to do the same and to look within and find what lights them up and to pursue it. despite fears and obstacles, because those are inevitable. So we're all about setting your life to music, finding your signature sound and your true voice, and going after it, because life is but a dream. So why not?
Mm. Oh, that was all so beautiful. And it's been so fun getting to know you and hearing your story. And I think that's really powerful to mention the background that you have with all of these very well-known and impressive venues and other professional singers and artists that you have worked with. And still, there was a piece of you that was like a heart-centered pull towards creating your own stuff. So I think that's really cool too for a lot of the listeners who maybe get so, oh, if I could just sing at one of those places or work with one of those people, that would be the dream. And it just goes to show that I'm sure it was a part of yours as well, but also where that creative part of finding your true voice and your type and style and signature sound that is still trying to work its way through and express itself. So I think that's really, really notable as well. And as oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I agree. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because then it makes you think, how many people are we watching on stage that are truly in their zone of genius and in their lane and pressing on that gas pedal, and how many people are like one foot in, one foot out, but doing it to bide time.
Or even to stay relevant, because I think there's, I've heard, I think it was Katy Perry talk about how she kind of had to give up some of her I mean, she's very unique in the Katy Perry sense of her, but just where she had to give up some of her artistic creativity in some ways in order to be where she's at. So I think that's very notable for creatives when you're venturing into releasing your real raw stuff. So in regards to that, I'd love to start with talking about how your body and your vocal cords really truly are your instrument, and how even just simple alignments or postures or breath can really tap you into not only getting to project and use your instrument for your voice, but also how it can shift your state, right? So if you're not feeling well, if you're feeling in self-doubt, there tends to be more of a holding pattern. Whereas when you're like, I've got this, I feel aligned with my truth. And from a singer, would love to hear your perspective on some of those, as they're foundational, I think, for most singers as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to think about. As someone who has a lot of technical experience, 10,000 hours type of thing, and teaches other people singing at an advanced level, you think about just the same way that if you were to play a guitar, you wouldn't bend your guitar, or here even, like, here's a little MIDI keyboard. If I wanted to play this keyboard to release emotions, I couldn't play it if it were crumpled in half, right? With your voice as an instrument, can't sing if you're clenching in your throat, even if you don't know that you are. You're like, why is the sound not coming out? Or your body, because your voice has to do with many organs in your torso, your diaphragm, your lungs, your intercostal muscles, the chest cavities, etc., your vocal cords themselves. And that's part one. Part two, part three is everything in the head space. Your tongue, your jaw, your the mask, the nasal cavities, the soft palate, way in the back, the hard palate, the upper and lower jaws, the forehead space here, and the upper space in the back of your head. So it's very physical. And I notice that I also, when I have tried to sing, when I've been very upset and crying, I can't sing. And there are a few times when I can't sing because I'm clenching and I'm overcome with emotion and I just shut down. And there was a period in my life when I spent a whole year crying every time I tried to sing. We can talk about that later, but it's that clenching in. I also notice when I need to sing, sometimes if I have to sing for a gig and the show must go on. You can't back out of a professional opportunity. And so you have to remove the emotion and you get into this blind, not folded, but like a horse with blinders on. And you just have to think at that moment, come back to the breath. Always when you're performing, if you are making mistakes, which everybody makes mistakes, you just don't show that you make mistakes. In jazz, they're like, that's a genius thing that you did. And they're like, actually, I made a mistake, and then just kept going. But you just have to think about what technically needs to happen if you're getting really wrapped up in your emotions that's cutting you off. So first thing, never in the shoulders, lifting. This is indicative of a shallow breath. It's not even in your lungs. Shoulders are down. Breathing is 360 degrees around you, front, side, and back. And a great way that you can even check yourself is this little exercise, very simple. You can stand, the best is if you sit on the edge of your chair, you take your hands and you put them on your lowermost ribs, not your waist, but the bottom ribs. And you imagine you have a string pulling you up from the back of your head like a dancer, your shoulders are relaxing down, and you just breathe in nice and deep through the mouth. And you feel it expand to the front, the side, and the back. And it fills up like a sandbag. So it's low and then the chest lifts afterwards. And you keep this lift when we're singing. So this is an easy way that you can feel it. You can also keep one hand on your lower ribs, one on your sternum here, and stay lifted. And that helps you get in touch with your body. When we sing, we breathe in through the mouth. You don't have time to breathe in through your nose on stage. So there's that. Also, yeah, so the elements of like, if you're emotional, you can choke. If you have to sing, you just think, get in a zone, very zen, and you just think about breathing and technique and placing the sound in the architectural space in front of you, and you sing by feeling. You don't listen to yourself so much. You just put it, we train to sing by feeling. Yeah, does that answer the question? Or is there one more?
Yeah, that was so great. That was wonderful. And I, this kind of segues because, you know, we have a couple things I wanted to cover with you, but this segues really nicely into the importance of self-development for finding your voice, because there is a piece where you have to compartmentalize, like for the show to go on a lot of the times, as you were saying, like if you start to choke up with emotions or different things. And so with that, I know we've talked about a couple different things that have helped you also, but what are things that you would recommend for people? I know this is what you work on with women in your coaching for helping them develop as well. But for emotional and personal or self-development, what are some things that you've tried or done or would recommend to creatives in this process?
I would recommend diving into the uncomfortable elements about what's holding you back with the help of a professional or a support group. I do both. So much of my part in trying to find my voice was that I was numb to myself. I was so codependent and I didn't even know it. I come from a dysfunctional family. That's not me at my core, and that's just what I was born into. I'm so grateful for many elements of this, but I didn't realize our interactions and enmeshment was leading me to think I had to do things a certain way to earn love, and I didn't have a strong sense of self-worth. I mean, I did enough that I could be like, I'm going to do my dreams and I can do it. But then but I can't do what I truly want to do and follow what my heart is telling me because I'm not good enough. So I'll just stay around it and then stay in this purgatory forever. And so it comes down to getting out of denial, processing grief,
Yeah.
But through that, you take the burdens off and life is so much lighter. It's definitely important to address. So um, yeah, it's transformational.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a beautiful, I like how you talk about this because a lot of the time when people think about doing self development, they are like, I'm not ready to go there, or that's going to be a lot of work, or that's going to be painful. But like what you were saying, it's like it takes the weight off. It actually sets you free and it lets you set down the weight that you've been carrying. And this is a huge piece where whether it was a difficult childhood or a one-time event, or maybe you had, and we'll get into this shortly about the event that led you to go to France and that in that story. But this piece of self-doubt, I love the saying self-doubt kills dreams because it's just so true. And it sounds like a piece of this of healing the codependency, healing and really doing the grief work of releasing helped you step into releasing the self-doubt. And I'm sure self-doubt still comes up, but you have a different
Yeah.
conversation and a different relationship to it probably than you used to, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of the France story, since I keep bringing it up because I think it's so profound, I'd love, whatever you feel comfortable with, but just sharing what had happened prior to you going and kind of your journey with reclaiming and really coming back to your voice through that process.
Oh my God. So yeah, while I was in school studying to be an opera singer, I did it because I thought my mom wanted me to do it. I love my mom, but maybe she wanted me to do that. I think she just wants me to be happy, and it's something that she was familiar with. So I would be living in Montreal, going to opera school by day, going to raves at night, loved electronic music, was just too scared to go follow it on my own. And I was kind of the black sheep of the music school. I didn't suck up or anything. I would I don't know, I'd walk in with like my high top sneakers and skinny jeans to an opera lesson, and the teachers would be like, I also didn't practice as much as I should have because my heart wasn't fully in it. I did practice a lot though, and I did give a lot. And it was confusing to me because I would have some successes. So I would have auditions, and the head coach of the Metropolitan Opera would run down to me and say, "You're not ready yet, but you have something special. Don't give up." And I had just, had experience singing with Placido Domingo at the Kennedy Center, all this kind of stuff. So, and years of getting paid to do this and film and etc. And so I was very confused about what my identity was. And at the time of my final recital, I was going through a vocal technique issue where there was like a little part of a blurry fuzziness in one part of my register, a very tricky register to navigate. And it had a lot of like psychological problems as well, like with the frustration and the earnesty to get this. And with my recital, I failed, and the one of the panelists wrote, "Do the composer a favor and don't sing his music anymore." I that I had so much codependency and weight and other people's opinions about me that it devastated me. I I lost like my sense of self, and it makes me emotional thinking about it, less so now than before. But it was, I just remember talking to the department to like arrange my uh, final degree elements. I still got my degree, all this stuff. But I said, you watch, this is going to be the spur of something great. Like, I'm going to be a professional singer. And I said that, but I still had so much self-doubt. And at the time, I studied abroad from France to my school. One thing led to another, and I just got this incredible opportunity, and I took it. And it was at this 400-year-old beautiful chateau called Chateau de Paraza, Paraza, that Louis XIV would stay in. It was instrumental to France's history. And I was just living there with a French family, a Parisian family that bought this estate and moved down there. And I would just be there selling wine throughout the day and singing opera, playing piano, and reading Sotheby's real estates magazines and sipping wine at night in this big castle. And I would cry every time I tried to sing after that, and for a year. And but that moment in France, it brought me back to this sense of freedom and being, because I just kind of like self-indulged and let myself just feel so much. When I returned back to the States after that, I knew that I had to sing. And so I found a gig on Craigslist to audition for a gig with the French embassy in Washington, D.C., where I'm from that area. I was at home for a bit. And I knew how to speak French from opera and from living in France. And I learned Edith Piaf's La Vie en Rose and another song. I went and auditioned at their gig that night, got the gig. And then one thing led to another. And so I just did it because I needed to prove to myself that I could be a singer, and that I needed external validation from other people. But like, here's money for your singing, do it. So that's what I took it, and I became a career in New York City, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, and that's huge, and it's so powerful, because this is something too around rejection that all creatives, especially musicians and actors and actresses, have to at some point get somewhat of a thick skin for. But I do think this piece of healing the codependency and really tapping into what you really want to be doing as an artist helps alleviate some of that rejection. Because for someone to tell you like, don't ever sing this again, or it's just rude. And it's, I think people get that a lot, where they're told you're never going to make it, it's not going to happen for you, when in reality it was like maybe just not that part, or maybe just wasn't a good fit, kind of a thing.
Oh, totally. I'm reading this book right now by Colin Tipping called Radical Forgiveness. And it's about looking at events in life and interactions with other people and situations where normally, how we're traditionally taught, at least in the Western culture here, to forgive someone, it's like, fine, I forgive you and I'll let it go. But then there still might be some harboring of resentment there. In radical forgiveness, it's looking at, what is the underlying force of the universe beyond what we can perceive in our senses, what is actually leading to something else. And we know scientifically that we're limited by our senses. There are more dimensions existing, but we haven't discovered them. And this is looking into what if there are other underlying currents that are all aligning for your greater good. Another thing to think about with the entertainment industry is that you might remind the casting director of their ex-partner just from the way that you talk or the way that you look, and it might not be anything to do with you. So it's not, it might not, so that element of the thick skin. Also, I think as artists, we're trained to be very emotional and putting our emotion through our work. And in my experience, and with the other artists that I've known in various disciplines, to not be as aware of business sides of things and science. And then when you step back and look at math and science, what is the probability and the likelihood numerically of all of these submissions and auditions or performances that you're doing? Like, it's a numbers game ultimately. And so if we step back with some of the emotional aspects, like, it's never going to happen to me. And it's like, that's not true. you just haven't hit your 100 submissions or yet, you know, it's like, you gotta just keep showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so important to not give up, because it's kind of, in a lot of ways, the last man or woman or person standing, that to really keep chipping away at something that your heart's calling you towards, for it to happen. I feel like a lot of people give up too soon. And they have, it's a regret a lot of people have, is like, oh, I wonder what would have happened, or I wish I would have tried longer or started sooner, or different things like that. And so over the years, through singing and songwriting and producing music, I mean, singing and music is self-expression. It's so creative. And what has been your key journey in really connecting in and finding your true voice? I know there's been little things along the way, like your trip to Greece and to France, and having this, like you were talking about, these other forces kind of guiding that. But what would you say is one of the top ways that you've really dialed into finding your voice, whether that's connecting with yourself and your emotions, or getting out into nature? It really could be anything. But what would you say has been key for you in finding your true voice and your signature sound?
To listen to what's calling you. So it's a combination of what lights you up, and also taking stock of other people's responses, not in order to gain validation, but it's where they meet in the middle. So you can think about it. I'm so grateful for learning business structures and strategies. It's helped me so much to get out of myself and my own limiting thoughts. So you think about what keeps calling me. Okay, I love Dua Lipa. I love this globetrotter artistic style icon. Her name is Aureta, Aureta. I have them on my vision board on the other side of my computer. I like those, and different aspects of culture that I want to be a part of. And then that's a cultural like embodiment. And then also with the vocals, what naturally feels good to sing. And then what I dream of doing. And then that in combination with people's responses. So if you're looking to find your voice as a singer, for example, you can do this exercise where you record yourself singing 5 songs by 5 different artists with slightly different contexts, and share them with a trusted ear who knows music and will give you constructive feedback, not a family member, not a friend, who's honest feedback. But I'm not going to rip you apart and say, don't sing. Someone's going to, and you say, okay, which sounds best in my voice, in your opinion? What would you think I should do more of? What less of? And then just take it with a grain of salt. And if you do this with the number of people, it's not just all of your efforts invested in one person's ID, what people respond to. And so you use that data to develop what you ultimately create. And so this is how you're testing the market and combining it with your passions. And that gives a sense of validation to what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you've been so creative in that piece too, of mixing jazz with electric pop. It's like so cool. Yeah, your music is so much fun. And so how can people find you? I'm going to check the chats and see if anyone had questions, but if you could let people know what you've got going on, where they can find you, yeah, all the details on how they can work with you or check out your music. May have paused here for a moment.
Sure, yeah. I release music under my artist name Alarke, so that's Alarke. So you can go to alarke.com, alarke.com, to find new music releases, socials. I have got new music on Spotify, all the platforms, which I'm super excited about. Currently working on a new single. And for artist coaching, you can go to setyourlifetomusic.com. I work with high vibe, emerging, and professional female artists in pop and electronic music. And we work in singing, songwriting, some music production, strategy for planning the releases that we work on together, and also the inner game that is necessary. And I do one-on-one coaching with these great artists, and I have a group program that is starting on May 3rd, and it is called Signature Sound. And you can learn about it at setyourlifetomusic.com/signature sound. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on today. And I'm so excited to see what else you create and put out into the world.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Such a pleasure.
Of course.